Hello, and I'm here to talk about abstract animation and mainstream animation's relationship. In particular, early animation and independent animators that shaped the future of animation from the late 1800s to the 1930s and 40s, and see how each side of animation furthered animation technology. But first, what is mainstream animation and abstract animation? What's the difference? First, mainstream animation would be the animation that comes from big companies like Disney, Pixar, and DreamWorks. These would be your feature films or cartoons on TV. The animation would have characters you can identify with, an effect narrative, and a clear environment. They would tell stories and envelop the viewer into different worlds. It would either try to mimic or depict reality in a new form. However, abstract animation is the complete opposite. This form of animation has no characters you would identify with, no clear narrative, and no logical environment. Instead, they would have shapes, colors, and sounds. A lot of these animators were early independent animators, mostly European, wanting to use the animation in a different way. These animators were influenced by modernist art movements that swept across Europe at the time, which shaped how they animated. In France, they were inspired by art movements such as Dada and Surrealism. In Germany, however, they were influenced by Suprematism, De Stijl, Bauhaus, and Expressionism. Most of these movements, particularly De Stijl and Suprematism, are against mimicking reality and instead tear it apart into art's purest form: color, geometric shapes, and movement. In cinema, that was referred to as cinema pur. A look back to how animation came to be in its early time would require looking into the past. In the early 1800s, the earliest form of animation was first used as toys, such called as the thermotrope, the phenacotoscope, the zoetrope, the flipbook, and movie lola or Braxtonian scope. The technique stop motion or frame by frame was then created by Alfred Clark that was used by stopping the crank on the camera, then starting it up again. It was used in his film The Execution of Mary, Queen of the Scots, by replacing the actress with a puppet for the execution. The technique was then used as an animation trick in The Enchanted Drawing in 1900 by James Stewart Blackton. Then in 1906, Blackton created the first animated film called Humorous Faces of Funny Faces, using that trick. Blackton's film and techniques then inspired and was improved upon by Emile Cole, who made the first hand-drawn animated film and first French animated film, Fantagiro Mori. It was then created on a illuminated glass pad and 700 drawings. It was then in 1914 Gertie the Dinosaur by Winsor McCay presented the first film with a likable and memorable character. In 1919, the first animated movie star was then Felix the Cat, which was one of the other main contributions to mainstream kinds of animation. From then on, abstract animators were coming out of the woodwork as well. Walter Ruttmann even created theories on abstract movement. In 1922, Oskar Fischinger created an animation using wax experiments, creating 3D space for the first time. And in 1926, a German filmmaker and avant-garde artist named Loretta Renger created the first animated feature film before Snow White, called The Adventures of Prince Ahmed. The film mostly is overlooked due to it using silhouettes and widely being forgotten, but in any case it is still animation. Many of these animators at the time were avant-garde filmmakers and painters trying to do something new and radical. After that, in 1928, Steamboat Willie, the first incarnation of Mickey Mouse, was created. There was also the first animation with sound printed on film, which then became the golden era for American animation with Disney at the top. Disney then created the first animated feature film with color and sound, Snow White, in 1937, asserting animation into the mainstream audience. The best example of clash and cooperation of those two different communities are the events with Oskar Fischinger and Disney in 1939. Fischinger was a German artist that moved to America during the Nazi occupation of Germany. In Germany, the Nazi Party did not like the radical ideas of Bauhaus and De Stijl and many of these modern art movements. So he had to leave. He proposed the idea of animation that moved in time with music to Walt Disney, basically the earliest form of a music video that essentially became the first Fantasia movie. However, during production of Fantasia, Fischinger quits from the production. He claimed that he disapproved of using figurative objects or characters because that went completely against his avant-garde vision. Disney wanted to change it because they believed that the audience wouldn't understand or like what Fischinger had in mind. His style just did not fit with how Disney does their animations, being of course more story-based and character-based, while his was more experimental. Disney went on without him then and did not credit him in the film at all. Although if you look closely, you can see the similarities between Fantasia and Oskar Fischinger's optical poem in 1938 quite clearly. The result ended in a disagreement, this still continued to revolutionize animation as a whole. And even now, we still keep on continuing and improving how we animate. What we used as a subject matter, however, is entirely up to us. Oh, I just can't wait.